I wrote, your ideas are welcome here, but execution is worship. Everywhere I go, especially today, everybody tells me their ideas. If I check back later, an extremely low percent of people will have ever done anything about their great idea or their dream. Execution is everything. So you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be the person that picks up a shovel and starts digging while everyone else is still drawing plans 3 years later.
So today's guest is a serial entrepreneur. He's also described as a speaker, and he probably considers himself being a humanitarian as his one of his most impressive roles. But rather than me continue, let me have the pleasure of introducing you to Jeff Hoffman, who is our guest today, who I know you will know at least one of the companies that he's been involved in. And it's called that little company called Priceline that's also part of Booking.com. So Jeff, thank you so much for coming on today's show. And I'm so excited to speak with you.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So Jeff, I did a little bit of research on you and I have some info on you. And I have so much information on Jeff, the professional, Jeff, the entrepreneur. But true to form, I want to know about Jeff, the man. So tell me about what's not in your bio.
It's funny because this isn't usually a topic I talk about because part of our focus is that it's never about us, right? That's, I think, one of the most important tenets of leadership is when you realize it's not about you and it never was, right?
However, challenge just a little bit, self-awareness is so important about leadership. And self-awareness comes from who you are. So I want to know who you are.
I totally agree with that. So I can back up because this is where so much of the influence comes from, because I grew up in the Arizona desert, single mom, 4 kids, 3 jobs. And you know, it was interesting recently that one of my I have 2 sisters. My older sister said just recently, after all these years, she said, you know what? We didn't even know we were poor, which is an amazing tribute to my mother, right? Because that's not what she focused on, right? We were poor.
I will tell you, Jeff, it's also a sign of the times from a perspective. My mom was widowed at 36 with 5 kids too. And as you know, I told you I'm from Brooklyn. We didn't know we were poor either, but that's because we didn't have the Kardashians or the reality TV. We only knew what we lived with.
Yes.
Right? So.
Yeah, exactly. So my mom was definitely the role model. You know, she, in fact, if we realized years later that she was working that hard just to keep us in a neighborhood she couldn't afford, to improve the school we could go to, you know, my siblings and I were all like, we would have been fine. You didn't have to kill yourself for that. But of course, we didn't know that then. But that was the role model. Right, she would innovate, create, and do whatever it took to raise her family. And again, she never focused on all the stuff we didn't have, which is why we, quote, didn't really know we were poor, because we didn't care, because she didn't care. So that's how I grew up. It also led to my entrepreneurial
By the way, Jeff, let me ask you a question though.
Sure.
So you were probably like me then. We were the first generation of latchkey kids.
Yes.
Today you'd be arrested for that.
Right. No, without a doubt. Right. Mom's at work and you just come home. In fact, you know, I would come home, feed my little brother, right? Because mom was working. So right. Yeah, that's absolutely the case. But we never thought of anything of it then, right? Because you understood your parents doing the best they can and you're going to do your part for that. So you're right. Today it's a crime. Back then, it was just everybody in the family trying to get done what everybody has to get done. I never thought anything of that. We appreciated her work. But I did feed myself a lot and feed my little brother. And you know, it is what it is, right? That's just how to. But I also learned a lot of responsibility that way that I would not have if I had a mom that just did everything for me. That does not prepare.
Well, not only that, Jeff, the problem today is the parents are fighting the kids' battles. So the kids don't learn how to fail. They don't how to learn to work through adversity. They don't take responsibility. And so honestly, a lot of the leadership that is lacking today, I don't know where we're going to be in 20 years.
Right. Yeah. No, I it's a big problem, and we're seeing the results of that everywhere, right? With all these troubled youth, literally the school shootings and things. If you back those up, the core of those problems ties back to what you're talking about. We got big issues now. But anyway, that's how I grew up. I did not want, so I was I still am a big sports nut, and I played every sport. And so sports cost money, the equipment, the different shoes, etc. And I never wanted to bother my mom for that. So I said that was the influence on me as an entrepreneur, was that I would sit there and think, I need new cleats for baseball because football's over. And I don't want to ask mom for money because she's already stressed out. So what can I do to make it myself? So I would literally go out in the Arizona sun, knock door to door and ask people, can I clean your garage? Because it's pretty messy and it should be embarrassing to you. I was pretty good at marketing, telling people. And I would say, can I clean your garage? Because clearly you're not going to. I said these things carefully. But I would almost embarrass them into saying, you know what, kid, here's $20, go clean my garage. And so I found ways to make money in the hot sun, but I also learned the relationship between what you want or need. I need baseball shoes, and your work ethic. If I go out there and toil in the sun and clean someone's garage, I get money. Not only to get my baseball shoes, I don't have to stress my mom out. And we would get on our bikes and we'd ride to the mall on the weekend because that's where the air conditioning was when you're in the Arizona desert. And my friends were like, geez, I wish we could afford pizza. But their parents only gave them some small amount, and I would buy the pizza. And there was a sense of pride because I did the hard work. I had the money and I could do what I wanted, and they couldn't. They could only do what they were allowed. I could actually do what I wanted. So even buying pizzas for my friends made me feel like a productive member of society. So I'm telling you that because that's sort of, was really what led to me later deciding to be an entrepreneur instead of taking a different path.
Okay, so let me ask you about something, though, because I do a lot of work on it's relationships, right? And our relationship to money. So it sounds like early on you developed a relationship to money. So how would you describe that further? Because you did go on and, when you do right by other people, it comes back to you. So with a lot of your entrepreneurial endeavors, you became very wealthy, but you made many other people very wealthy, right? It wasn't just about you. So what is your relationship to money, and what do you think a healthy relationship to money is for entrepreneurs?
So I think that's a phenomenal question because I had no you. So I had zero preparation for that. I came from
what's he talking about? Oh, why are you? Okay.
Your content. I didn't have somebody like you to listen to, so I had no guidance onto having a relationship with money. And almost it's funny because my father, who I didn't really know till I was an adult, they were divorced when I was a baby. My father
was he not in the picture at all? Did he? Or he
not really. No, I went to meet him when I became an adult and was one of my best friends. Unfortunately, just lost him a couple of years ago. But he wound up, we never had the father-son relationship per se, but he was one of my best friends. But he at one point worried that I had financial success too early. And I'll explain why. And I'll explain, again, it's a really important question because it wound up starting out way negative, my relationship with money. And then I'll tell you where I flipped the switch, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
When I was 20 something years old, everybody told me to get a good degree, so I could get a good job at a good company and a good paycheck. So I got a software degree, got a good job at a giant engineering company, had a good paycheck.
Hang on, Jeff. Let me toot your own horn because you blew by it, which most Ivies don't. So Jeff went to Yale, so he's Ivy League educated. Go ahead.
So I got a good job, had a good paycheck at a big engineering company, hated it. I did not have a good life, which, by the way, no one ever asked me. They just asked me if I had a good job and a good salary. I hated it.
You didn't give me a chance yet. I was going to get there, but whatever.
Okay. So I quit. I'm 20 something years old. I'm broke and unemployed. I was living paycheck to paycheck, but in the particular company I was at, I couldn't do it. So I walked one day and I said, I don't know what's going to happen next, but I know what I can't do. So now I'm broke. Now
Which
I'm
was what?
unemployed.
What was it that you can't do? What was it?
The environment that I was in. I don't want to
Which was
genericize all companies. I was
no,
in
no.
an
But
extremely
what was the toxicity
bureaucratic,
for you?
a bureaucratic, misogynistic, racist management team. How's that?
And overworked.
Yeah, no, they didn't even care if you did your work or not.
Really?
That was all part of
What they
it,
care
right?
about?
No
What they
real
care
focus on impressing management, not customers. So
Wow.
it was. So that's why I said I'm not going to make that general for all big companies. The one I worked for, I couldn't do. So I just walked out, and I'm unemployed. I'm broke. I'm 20 something years old. I'm standing in an airport because I bought a ticket with the little money I had to go see a mentor, which, by the way, did not know he was my mentor because I hadn't met him yet. I was just going to go camp outside his door, talk him into it. The airport back then, you had to check in with a human being to get your boarding pass. The line was a million miles long. I stood in for an hour and a half, missed my flight. When you miss your flight, it's not like a change fee. Like it cancels your ticket. You lose all your money if you just don't show. Right. Very upset, standing in the airport, broke, unemployed, lost my money, can't go anywhere, right? Tears of frustration. But I was standing there because I have this sort of, my whole life, my mother kept telling me how impatient I was. And telling me how patience was a virtue. And the one thing I needed to work on was patience. And by the way, I have improved that roughly 0% in all the years since then. And
yeah, you're not striking me as a patient guy. Yeah,
I wasn't. And I was like, I'm never standing in a line like this again. So I went home, and that Friday, I started my first startup. I took out a pencil and a piece of paper, and I said, I'm going to figure out how to not stand in a checkout line. And so today, when you go to the airport and you check in those kiosks that are in airports pretty much everywhere in the world, that was my first invention. So I was lucky in that.
So that was the engineer in you coming out there.
Yeah, right. That was an engineering project. And I had no idea how to build a business, learned that all along the way. I'm 20-something years old, hiring 40-year-olds because they have some experience. And they're asking me what they should do. And I'm like, really? I hired you because I have no idea what I'm doing. Anyway, company's successful.
I thought you knew.
That's exactly what happened. It's like, why are you in my office? They're like, you're the CEO.
Which is the secret behind a lot of businesses.
So anyway, airlines all over the world bought them, and then we sold the company for millions of dollars. So now I'm 20-something years old.
I thank you for streamlining the check-in process. I truly do.
Thank you. Sometimes people send me a selfie of themselves standing next to a kiosk machine with a boarding pass, and they just write thanks. I still get a kick out of that.
Well, I do pre-TSA, global check-in.
Everything you can do.
Charge me anything. I'm paying for it to bypass those lines.
So that company worked. Then we sold it after only 4 years.
Now, hang on, Jeff. You say we. Did you partner with other people? Are you talking about investors?
No,
What's the we?
It's always the royal we, because nobody ever does anything that matters by themselves. Okay. So I always use that term because without the team of people that I hired, there's no success. It's never you. It's always your ability to create a team around you. So I always use the royal we. I don't like it when people say I as though they did everything without a team. There was a team that I hired. But I was the CEO.
You the sole owner?
Yeah, no, yes. Early on, then I brought in one investor. Okay. I only ever needed one. So I did have one investor who was part of this. But anyway, we sold the company, and overnight, it's like a lottery ticket, right? I'm broke. I'm driving an old, beat up, used Hyundai, which, by the way, I never felt sorry for myself, never complained. It didn't bother me. I was happy to have a car. I just think that's funny because later when I bought a fancy car, it occurred to me I never was unhappy with the car I had. I don't really need this, even though I bought a nice car. But anyway.
Hang on, Jeff. So how many years did it take you from startup as a young, bold 20-something-year-old and selling to Brazilian, multimillionaire? How many years was that?
It was in the 4th year that we sold it. It took 3 years. We were building the company for 3 years. In the 4th year, we sold it.
So that's speed lightning.
Yeah, it was. It was super fast.
So hang on. Other than the fact that you're a smart person, there's plenty of smart people that don't come anywhere near the success you've had. And knowing, with all due respect, like very little, close to nothing, what did you know for that success to come to fruition, other than you're not waiting online again and missing your flight? What's the wisdom there?
It's a couple things. One is less of wisdom and more philosophy. I wrote something on my door that I had for all my CEO jobs. I wrote, your ideas are welcome here, but execution is worshipped. Everywhere I go, especially today, everybody tells me their ideas. If I check back later, an extremely low percent of people will have ever done anything about their great idea or their dream. Execution is everything. So you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just have to be the person that picks up a shovel and starts digging while everyone else is still drawing plans 3 years later. So that was part of it.
So it's basically just do it. It's basically just do it.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that, Patty, because I took I saw the Nike logo that said "Just do it," and that was also I stuck one of those stickers on my door.
There you go.
Talking about
Shoe Dog. I'm sure you read Shoe Dog, right? Phil
yeah,
Knight?
Of course.
Just do it.
So so that was one, and the other one was that. And again, none of this is rocket science, but we just really focused on it, which was I see a lot of people that have an idea, startups, entrepreneurs, business owners, that are pitching to you what they want to pitch to you. I want you to buy my product because I'm trying to do this. It's always comes from them outward. This is my product. I want you to take these actions, buy my product, hire me, whatever, because that's my goal. I never did that. What I did was I went in and studied the heck out of these customers and tried to figure out what objectives they were working on. And when I found out that there was a huge objective corporately to try to reduce labor, staffing, and overall cost of operating an airport, I walked in and said, held it up. Is this your objective? They said, yeah, that's our annual report. And I said, I actually can help you get where you're going. That's most of the pitches are, here is what I want. Here's what I have. You should buy my product. I didn't say that. I said, I see what you're trying to do, and I figured out how to help you get there. You want to hear it? And they're like, you can help me achieve my goal? I literally said to somebody once, I think I can personally get you promoted, right? That's a lot more interesting to a buyer than you saying, if you would just give me some money, I'd give you my product. What I said is, I think I can get you a promotion. And he's like, go on. So that was I wouldn't call it wisdom, you did, but that's how we approached it differently.
So what you're saying though is honestly, you really executed a principle that's not a secret.
Correct.
Find a need and fill it.
For sure.
Find a need and fill it. Okay, go ahead.
Exactly. But I'm just telling you that because today I listen to pitches week in and week out. And a lot of times what I ask people is, who actually wants that? What need are you filling? You created something you thought was cool and you hope someone will buy it, right?
Yeah,
if you start the other way around, go out and find that need first. But anyway, so that's what happened. We built that. We were, like I said, it's like a lottery ticket. The next morning, your bank account has a bunch of zeros in it. And you're actually... It
must have been surreal to you.
Oh, completely. Yeah. No idea.
So what did you do?
Preparation.
Hang on. Since you brought it up, right? We were talking about your relationship to money, which you never really answered. So you have no money. You grew up with no money. You didn't really care about the money. You were just not living that lifestyle. So now you have all this money. What'd you do with it, if anything?
So two things happened. The first was I did what anybody probably would naturally do. Well, actually, the first thing I did was take care of everybody I wanted to take care of. My family, the immediate family, friends. So
what did that look like? Taking care of, what did that?
Oh, setting up trust funds for future for children you're going to have.
Yes, the Yale graduate coming out now, folks.
Literally sending money to pay bills, sending money to your brother, your sisters, your brother, your mother, giving everybody money so that they have comfort and they're not paycheck to paycheck anymore and they can take care of things. So it's a lot of stuff like that. People that you know that are suffering, giving them the money they need for a down payment, for a house, whatever. But
it sounds like you didn't really change your lifestyle much.
No, I didn't at first. I did second. Then I said, well, you know what? But by the way, a lot of that was driven by friends. So all my friends, some of my friends were living vicariously through me. I said, well, I guess I'll get a nice house. Um, and, at that point, I'm newly married. We're going to have young kids. So we decided to go get a house, a nice place. And my friends spent more time with the architect than I did. So the thing they came up with literally was nicknamed by all my friends Chateau Hoffman, because they basically designed a castle. And when it was finished, it was stunningly beautiful and nothing I ever needed. So I did buy
stuff. Was this in Connecticut? Was this in Connecticut?
No. I was living in Texas at the time.
Okay.
So I did go buy.
So it's like going into one of those House and Garden or Architectural Digest to open up the magazine. It's beautiful, but you'd never want to live there.
The lobby, which people kept saying, you can't call it the lobby. Well, I said, it's not the front door. It looks like a hotel lobby. The lobby is imported Italian marble and a free floating suspended like curved staircase. It looks like the lobby of a luxury hotel, not a house.
Yeah. The St. Regis.
So I did all the stuff that everybody pushed me to do. No, I'm not pretending I hated it. It was cool, except you know what happened? Shortly thereafter, I would walk around and think, I don't even go in these rooms, right? Why did I even build this, right? I'm afraid to walk on the imported Italian marble.
What did your wife think?
In between, she grew up very poor. And so all of this was fascinating. It was fascinating to people in her family. So everyone else thought it was cool. I wasn't seeing it, even at the beginning. But I'm not lying that I did go buy stuff. And driving a nice car is a lot better than driving a not nice car. But sure. I just realized pretty early on that I don't need any of this. So here's the thing, that when you have nothing, you just sit there wishing you had the money to buy everything. Then when it turns out when you can buy whatever you want, it's not that exciting anymore. Mm-hmm. And I realized that on the other side. It's like now that I can buy stuff, I don't even want to buy it. Now it turns out it was just knowing that I can was way more valuable than having
the
stuff.
Freedom. So that's what I talk about a lot. Money buys you happiness because it gives you freedom of choice.
Yes, that's exactly.
Nothing. And you learned this young though, so that was actually really cool, right?
Yes,
You're no longer chasing the almighty dollar.
Right. My father's concern was the opposite. He said, if everybody's definition of a business is chasing the almighty dollar and you make it too young, he said, what's your ambition incentive? He said, I'm worried you're going to be drifting. That didn't happen. But he's like, I'm worried you're going to drift now because everyone's in the maze trying to get the cheese and you got to it. And he's like, now what? So I was thinking about that. But since the money wasn't the driver in the first place, I thought I'd be okay. But anyway, so my first relationship with money was I did go out. I realized I can take care of a lot of people. And then I said, whoa, all the stuff I've never had, I can buy it. Then I bought it and I didn't care. And I realized that was a negative because it was a big empty. I was like, this is it. Everybody's in the rat race to get this because this can't be what it's all about because it's just not fulfilling. I have a house that I don't even go in the rooms of and I don't care. It's more fascinating to all my friends and relatives than anything else. Then a negative happened, which really darkened my relationship with money. Everybody on the planet, I had cousins reached out, contacted me. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. And they're like, well, we're actually cousins of yours in the family tree. I was like, okay, well, you're so distant. I've never heard of you and I've never met you. And they're like, yeah, anyway, we need you to buy us a car. And I was like, what?
Really that bold?
Yes. We heard through the family grapevine, your Uncle Jeff now, right? And we need a new car. So I called my mom. Are these people related to me? And she said, somewhere down the family tree, but I've never met him either. I said, well, they called and asked me to buy him a car. My mom's like, what? And she said, don't you dare. I said, Mom, I don't even know these people. And I said, look, I've never even met you. And they said, you're a greedy asshole and slammed the phone down. And I'm like, wait, so that's how I'm treated now? So if people that completely I don't know started asking me for stuff. And if I don't do it, I'm a jerk, right? But anyway, and then, so that negativity happened because the noise level, everybody was asking me for something all the time. And it's pretty much almost a no-win because I already took care of the people that I know. These are all people I don't know. They're calling me every day and I'm a jerk if I don't immediately say yes. So that was bothering me. Then another thing was bothering me. I went out to dinner with a group of friends I always go out to dinner with, and they treated me differently. At the end of the meal,
you have to pick up the bill. You have to pick up the bill.
No, at the end of the meal, I tried to pick it up. I said, sorry, I've been gone for a few weeks. I've been in New York City selling my company. I missed our dinners. And I said, hey, I appreciate you guys' support as friends, you know, and I reached and grabbed the bill. And I was only grabbing the bill to say, thanks for supporting me. And they said, grab the bill back and said, we can buy our own dinner, jerk. I was like, wait, what? And they said, we don't need your money. We're not a charity case. We have jobs. I said, guys, geez, I didn't try to buy your house. I just tried to buy dinner. And they're like, yeah, we know, to prove to us that you have money now. I was like, oh my God, 2 weeks ago, we were all best friends. And now I'm a bad guy. And so
Wow.
I went home, called my dad. I said, why does everyone hate me now? And he said, they don't hate you. They're jealous. I said, that's not fun. These are my friends. He said, maybe not. Maybe they weren't as good of friends as you thought, because a real friend would be proud of you for what you accomplished. I was like, why am I the one that worked really hard, set big goals, and I'm the one apologizing and feeling bad? I didn't really get that. So it was all a negative. And then I had some friends who were struggling, and I felt bad that a lot of the world is struggling. And that's only one form of struggling, right? Financially, but it's one I crossed off. And I felt bad for people who were struggling. So I went into a funk about money. My relationship was ugly. I had a day where there was a song out then, and you might remember, it was called Mo Money, Mo Problems.
Mo money, mo problems.
I was like, man, there was a day, the day that it hit rock bottom was, I actually said to myself, man, I wish I'd never made this stupid money, because now people hate me and everybody calls me all day and the phone never stops ringing. And I actually thought that. And I sat back and said, is that fair? I worked really hard. I took really good care of people. I gave a lot of the money I made to a lot of people. And why should I wish I hadn't achieved my goal? That's not fair. So that day, I was just confused and depressed about my relationship with money. And there was a TV story that changed my life. This is the turning point. I was in a negative relationship with money because it caused problems. And the turning point was, I was watching a TV show. The news. I was looking for a TV show, and the news came on, and it was a story. I thought it was a shooting because it was a house full of women and they were all crying hysterically. And so I thought it was a crime. And I literally assumed that. Plus, it was in the neighborhood I lived in, not in the neighborhood, but it was in town. And I knew where it was. And so I stopped the TV to watch this news report and what was going on. And what was going on was, there was a shelter for abused women built by two women who'd been abused. And they had bought a house, and they had spread the word, because the reason women can't get out of abusive relationships many times is they have nowhere to go and they have no money. So they're stuck staying. So these two women, that much I knew, built a house and were letting women live in it free so they could get out of abusive relationships. What happened was, they ran out of money because it was all free, and they were being evicted the next day. They had till midnight the next day. They had been foreclosed. And I'm watching it, and I do have to tell you this. I wrote the 4 most important words in my entire life at that moment, because while I was watching that, I said something that everybody says. Everybody looks at a problem and says, man, they should help those women. And then this thought occurred to me. If everybody looking at a problem says they should help those women, who's helping those women? Nobody, because we're all saying they should help those women. So I had the life-changing epiphany. I stood up and I wrote on my wall in giant letters, there is no they, it's you. And I was like, oh my God, that money I just hated 20 minutes ago, thank God I worked so hard, because that'll solve this particular problem. So I called the news station, and they said, it's a public story. They gave me all the info. I went on Monday. I did not want to be in the story. So I did not want to wire money or write a check, because the story can't be tech guy, right? Rich young tech guy saves the house, because the story would have been about me. It needs to be about, we need to provide shelter for our women. So I went to the bank and I figured out how much money they needed. And I took an empty duffel bag and I got cash, which was a story in and of itself. When I got to the bank, I almost got arrested, because they literally thought
money laundering. Yeah.
They were like, what the hell are you up to? But the bank president came out and he's like, I've seen you on the news. I know who you are. And I was like, do you have this much cash? He said, we do. Just give me the bag. Go sit down. I will go in the vault and I will bring it back. I took the cash over to the house and I paid.
Why didn't you just write a check?
Because I don't want my name on it. Otherwise, the story will be about me.
Even a bank check?
Oh, absolutely. It's the name. It's either my name on the check or my company's name. I didn't have any other way, or a wire. So I just took the cash to them. And I went over to the house. The ladies were all crying and packing. And I said, look, there's enough money in here to pay all your back rent and all of next year. You guys can chill out. You have a year to relax. I've covered everything. I put extra money in there for security systems and other things that I heard them talk about on the news. And I went back home, and when I turned on the news that night, I did it all anonymously. I hid my car 3 blocks away and walked. On the news, they said the woman was on TV, the same woman. And she said, it was a miracle. Some man came in and paid for the house. And I thought to myself, it wasn't a miracle. It's just that I'm a hard worker. So I wrote on my wall, your success is someone else's miracle. And my relationship with money was forever changed. What I realized was, I wrote another thing. I wrote, there's no shame in life in making money. The shame in life is in not using it to help others. So I never felt bad again. Right? What I thought to myself is, man, I want to go start another company, make more money because I could build more homes for women. Now I literally actually build orphanages and schools. I send kids to college. If I don't work hard and earn a profit, I can't do that. So money is only one of the ways to help people, but it's one that I am able to. So I don't hate money anymore. In fact, I appreciate its ability to give somebody a place to live and feed them, because I can't do that without it.
I think that is such a great story. And that's why, like I just said earlier, like we were talking about money. I said my second book was Money Can Buy You Happiness, Secrets Women Need to Know to Get Paid What They're Worth. It's about negotiating for women, right? Because women have a different relationship to money overall than men. And women are like, if you say you're working for money, it's like, oh, she's working for money. Yeah. I'm like, well, what do you, it's dirty. And I'm I got scathing emails. You're a clinical psychologist. You don't know anything about money. It doesn't make you happy. I said, clearly you didn't read the book. Money makes you happy because it gives you the opportunity that would otherwise remain close to you, and to have choices, freedom, yes. Which is what we talked about. And I always say, and I love this, that I love capitalism. I think that yes. There is no other economic model that has brought more people out of poverty. And what I love about it is that, especially in this country, I believe this strongly, there are so many people that make so much money that do such good with it that I'd rather give it to you
yes,
than to
exactly.
the government to waste it. And what you just described is just gives me so much hope. I have this other incredibly wealthy man. Everything's 2 degrees of separation, but I won't tell you who it is. And made a ton of money, like oodles and oodles of money. This man is constantly helping, just like you, not braggadocious, like doesn't want credit. He likes nice things. He grew up with nothing. He bought his family a house, his mother a house, and it makes him so. And he's still working, and he works very hard. And he is a good man. Yes, are there the wolves of Wall Street out there? Yes, of course. They're the ones that get the press. But you, that is so quiet about it, I just love that. So you are just embodying the whole concept of, doing good by doing good.
Yeah, now it has a name for it. Back then,
philanthropy, right?
Well, no, I mean, now people say that whole phrase of doing good by doing well. Usually people say you do well in business so you can do good deeds. But anyway, I came across that very organically. But like you said, it is happiness, right? Because it makes me happy that those women are not on the streets. That right? It makes me sleep better at night. And that was a direct result of having the money to solve the problem. So I agree with you. The people that are opposed to that and think that all money is evil, maybe they just haven't done anything good with it before. So anyway.
How many children do you have, Jeff?
2 daughters.
So, okay, 2 young ladies now, I assume.
Both out of college.
Right. So working. How has that value about money impacted them and how they live their lives? And you don't have to give me specifics, but I can't imagine that was probably just the start of all of this.
It was a problem because one day I was doing a little daddy-daughter date to go pick up my daughter. And she said to me, it was a Friday afternoon. So we were going to take a little drive, catch up with her about her week, and go go to dinner. And she said, "Oh, hey, pick me up in the Ferrari." And I said, "Okay, fine." And I switched keys. And I started the car and I was like, "Oh my God, what have I done? I don't want that kid. And this is a problem. And I don't want them to think anything about what's happening right now is normal or a given." So I realized something had to give. It stunned me. I was like, what am I doing? My kids are going to have no value to not appreciate things and not understand that the world doesn't live like them. They're just in this lucky moment because I did have that car and I didn't mind giving her a ride in it. So had to have a long talk with her, but I came up with an idea. One of the things that I was doing the next day on Saturday was I was the chairman of an association that provided physical activity sports. It was called the American Association of Adaptive Sports for the most disabled children. And if you think about wheelchair sports, well, first of all, when you think about, if you tell somebody disabled, they think of a wheelchair, right? But being blind, people don't need a wheelchair, but they're disabled. There's lots of versions of it. And second, if you think about disabled sports, you think about wheelchair basketball, right? When I ask people, but not everybody has arms. Not everybody can see. There's a lot of limitations. So, quote, wheelchair sports are limited to a small number of disabled people. So we decided to create a charity to create activities for all disabled people. So we'll give you a super quick example. This is real. In our softball game, the first child is disabled, but she can use her arms. So we hand her a bat, pitch a softball, and she hits it. And she can actually wheel herself down to first base. The second child is paralyzed from the neck down. So we have to pitch, we toss a beach ball and he bops it with his head, and then someone pushes him down to first base. The third child isn't in a wheelchair, but is blind. So we use a beeper ball and a beeper bat. They're all playing in the same game. They're all on a team. So these kids have never been on a team. They've never been outside playing. So that's what we do. But it turns out there's one thing worse than being disabled, which is being disabled and poor. What I didn't realize is there were a lot of kids in the inner cities that needed a wheelchair and didn't have one, right? You just automatically think, oh, if you're disabled, you get a wheelchair. No, you don't get a wheelchair. And if you're on the lowest below the poverty level, you get one. And if someone steals it, which is what was happening in the hood, the gangs were stealing them and selling them. You get a second one. And if that disappears, they don't send you another one for several years because they think you're selling them. So when I discovered a lot of kids weren't coming because they didn't have a wheelchair, I went out and bought 200 wheelchairs and had people comb the inner city and find people that didn't have a wheelchair that needed them. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, on Saturday, I said to my daughter, "Come with me tomorrow." And she said, "Sure." So you cut to the afternoon. We are pushing, again, I don't even like either of these words, but poor and disabled children around the field. Everybody's out in the bright sunshine laughing. There's tears of joy. We're running all over. But all the families are thanking me with tears in their eyes for creating a league, for giving their kid a jersey, and for buying the wheelchair. And my daughter turns to me and says, "You did all this?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "You created all this?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "You bought all these wheelchairs?" And I said, "Yeah." She stopped and stared at me for a minute. And she said, "Is this why you work so hard?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "Wow, I wish you had just shown me this earlier because now I understand." She said, "I understand that these kids can't even eat without somebody feeding them. And I live in the house I do. And I understand that you work really hard because no one else will take care of these kids. There is no they." So my daughter, it really changed her when I brought her out and said, "I don't do this so we can drive a fancy car. We do have a nice car, but I do this because all the rest of it goes for things like this." And that day just changed her.
That's a great story. And where does their mom and your wife? Are you still married to their mother?
No, we got divorced some years later. I was, I don't want to get into that detail, but I was lucky that it was an amicable. Two people that just grew separate directions, and it was an amicable divorce.
If I may, and this can just be a yes or no, was there any difference in the value of what you wanted to do with the money that played into the going your different ways, or nothing to do with that?
Actually, not only no, but we didn't even need a lawyer or a court. I just said,
Good.
you're the
Okay.
mother of my children.
I'll do the right
want you
thing.
to have a good life. And the deal that I wrote up was way better than any court or divorce court would have ever done.
Okay.
I said, I'll just take care of you. You've been an amazing mother. That was the end of it.
Awesome. So you're probably still friends.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Okay. So I know you didn't think that you were going there, but you're still only in your young 30s. So, so travel on.
So, really the rest of the journey is the same. I just started more companies, but there was always an angle that our success would create more miracles for people. Right. And so, that continued. I had a couple ideas that failed. But I failed really fast because I'm a super sort of goal-driven and focused person. Here's a list of things we need to do. If we can do them, we should keep going. If we can't, we should call it what it is. We failed. It was a dumb idea. Shut it down and start over. So I failed a couple times, and then we launched Priceline, and during Priceline we launched numerous companies, not just that one. Obviously, took those success public. They were successful. I have
to be honest, when Priceline first came on, because I'm old enough to remember, and I was living in Connecticut, and you guys were in Norwalk, and I think Oxford Health Plan was in the same building.
Well, they left. That's how we got the building.
Right, and that was Jay Wright. I think, was that
Jay Walker.
Jay Walker, and you guys had Check-Its? No, Boyd? Who was your president for a long time?
Well, no, he was many years later. At the beginning, it was Jay, and we had 3 divisions, 3 CEOs. Jay was one, John Otto was one, and I was one of the CEOs. Later, we brought in Rick Braddock, and then in more modern times, it was Jeff Boyd.
Right, and but I can remember the first time, because I don't know, I guess I can say this. My family's sort of kind of a Marriott family. We like the Marriott because I like to know what I'm getting, and but I'm like, all right, let me check out this Priceline. All these friends are getting all these great deals. I fell in love with it. And then I found, tell me if this was true. Somebody that worked there told me that, so let's say I want to stay in a 5-star hotel. So I put in 5 stars, hang on, and then I can look on a map and see the area where there's 5-star hotels near where I want to be. Right. So it narrows it down. And then this is what I was told. And then if I did 10, it was either 10 or 15% below the lowest recommended bid. For the most part, you'd get the room. True or false? Such a mundane question, right?
Sometimes true. And here's why I'll say that. All the algorithm decision making is based on real-time data, which every day it changes. It's availability, it's occupancy, it's what price of the rooms were sold. For a lot of times, yes, but not necessarily, because it's all real-time data. And if last night they predicted a big storm and a lot of people canceled their trip, all of a sudden all the pricing has changed literally at 2 a.m. So it's real time.
But I have to say,
for the most part, that's a pretty good strategy.
I loved it. I loved it, and I'm like, wow, this is like the New York City train. It's the great Democratic equalizer.
It was a fun run, and I apologize, but I only have a few minutes left.
No, that's okay. So I didn't. You know what? I forgot to ask you how much time you have. So I know that you've just written a book. So I want you to unabashedly talk about your book, promote it, and tell people how they can get it.
Sure, it's super simple. The book is just called Scale. We were blessed enough that several of the companies I've been part of multiple times became multi-billion-dollar companies. So people asked, how do you take a small company and grow it into a big one? And so me and my co-author, David Finkel, wrote a book called Scale. And it's basically 7 things you have to do right for your company to take off and grow into a big company. And that's all looking back by saying, here's the things that actually worked when we built companies. So it's called Scale. And that's what it's about. The 7 things you need to do as a business owner to grow your business. And Amazon's the easiest place to find it.
Okay. And so let me ask you this question. We have a couple more minutes, right?
Yeah, I have like 5 minutes.
Okay. So what is the biggest mistake you made that you want people to learn from?
The biggest mistake that I made was listening to the wrong people. And I wrote that on my wall too one day. And this is what I wrote. I wrote, we get our advice from proximity, not relevance. That's how I summarized what I learned. Because you listen to the people that see you every day, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, brother, sister, friends. They have access to you. The only qualification they have for giving you advice is proximity. They're there every day. And I listened to a lot of people when they mostly telling me I was wrong and not good enough, but even when they told me I was right, and none of them were ever qualified to make those judgments, but I listened to them. And later I realized, one day I said to my mom, I said, wait. You're telling me this is a bad idea based on all your years of experience building internet companies, right? My mom goes, I never built an internet company. I said, exactly. Why are you telling me? And I was thinking, why did I ever listen to this? Now, those people love you and they think they're doing right, but I need relevance, not proximity. So I went out in the community and I said, is there somebody? So by the way, this is my revised definition of a mentor. When I said I needed a mentor, because I want somebody who's done what I'm trying to do, so it's relevant, people said, well, Jeff, you're in the travel industry. Find somebody that comes from travel. Well, that was bad advice. What I learned is
they're just going to give you the same old.
Yeah. What I learned is if you want a mentor, find somebody you want to be like when you grow up. And I don't care how old you are, you're never done growing up. Find somebody you want to be like when you grow up. And so that's what I look for. And I was like, man, I admire and respect this guy, Roger. I want to be like him someday. So I reached out to him and he was relevant. When Roger tells me I'm off base. You got to
give us the last name, Roger.
I can't without his permission because
okay, fair enough.
I did this once and all these people went looking for him. So he said, please don't do that again.
Oh, that's so inappropriate for people to do.
Okay. Yeah, but in the old days, you couldn't do that on a social media day. They all started reaching out and he's like, maybe don't say my last name next time. But he was a guy I wanted to be like.
On Twitter, it's him.
And I reached out and found him and his opinion means something completely different to me than my friends or my sister or whatever.
I love it.
They all love you. They're trying to help you, but they're not qualified to give you advice.
What do they know? Right. It's like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just didn't know that. And I listened to the wrong people and made decisions based on that. That's the thing I wish I'd done.
I do think that's part of good leadership, though, knowing who to surround yourself with.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. So here's the last question. You have to listen carefully.
All right.
What's the last book that you reread and why?
The last one I reread was Alchemist, which I have read more than once because it touches me deeply to think about, to stop and reboot a little bit, reassess my journey. What is next? Where am I going and why? So that I don't waste time chasing something that I'm not really even interested in just by sheer inertia. So that book helps me solve the inertia problem. What am I doing next? Where am I? What do I want? And what direction is it in? And that's what I get when I read them.
Okay. So you live up to the billing of being a true humanitarian. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the listeners? Answer a question I didn't know enough to ask.
No, you did. I really, really could have talked to you for hours. So I'm good. Thank you.
Great. Okay. And that concludes today's session. I feel like I just went through a coaching session here with Jeff Hoffman for Dr. Patty Ann's podcast. I urge all of you to go out and get Jeff's book. You just got an appetizer for the wisdom that this man can share. And if it's not just for his business wisdom, it's for who he is as a man and a humanitarian, which to me just trumps everything. And so until next time, be well.